Okay, so I'm really excited to get started on this, and I got to be honest with you, I struggled with deciding whether or not I was going to do which of the two videos first because you sent me one saying that it was going to be really nice with it pronounced, and that the other one was a little bit, maybe not quite as nice. So, just to kind of head up, I tried to not look at the videos too much beforehand. That way, I'm looking at it in more of a real time sort of a situation. Certainly, I have the ability to scrub forward and backward through the video and to review it, but on my first time through, I kind of like to get a nice clean look. That being said, on these two, I wanted to kind of have a better idea, as to what I could offer you because I had the two different types of videos. So I peeked at both of them really quickly to give me maybe a place to start. So, for right or for wrong, whatever, I've decided to start on the ice rink video. So, with that little presentation out of the way, let's get started. So I want to say that the very first thing that comes to my mind, and when we're talking about efficiency of motion here, is the decision to go down the wall around the ice rink. I don't want to say that that was a bad decision at all. I think it was totally fine. The only thing, and maybe it's just because of my past experience, but this right here really screams out to me that I want to get this done and out of the way because of its proximity to the start line. Because I'm already here and because it's a standalone element, I kind of feel like I would have gone in here and knocked this dude out real quick and then would have gone off. That way it's gone, it's out of my mind, and I don't have that extra travel time involved in this sort of unproductive space here. Again, that's just a minor note, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the way that you decided to approach it. Just saying that that's probably how I would have done it. Um, and it's very possible that nothing along that wall was going to be productive, but I agree with you. It was worth a nice scan. Of course, and we know that there wasn't anything there. But that being said, with your dog out at this range at this point, right around the time it goes back behind the white vehicle, I feel like the dog may not actually be sniffing because when we come out here, that does not look like hunting behavior. That looks more like a dog on a mission to get somewhere. And so, if you are going to go ahead and take the time to go ahead and give that wall a cursory scan, which again, I kind of agree with, let's just make sure that's getting scanned. If we're going to put the effort into it, let's go ahead and make sure that it means something. Um, and then you go ahead and make the decision to get back to the vehicle, which I think is very, very smart. But it isn't really until somewhere back in there, I think, that hunting really begins. It's difficult for me to really speak to it because of the camera angle doesn't show us a whole lot. I think the hide ends up being on the center of the trailer, or at least somewhere in that arena. Yup, there we go. Very nice. Um, yep, there you go. Good decision right there to go ahead and get into that space that's back between the vehicle. I like that a lot, that little casting maneuver. So, and this is kind of consistent on the other vehicles. I want to talk to you about this a little bit, and it's sort of one of the bigger points that I pick up here. I'm not sure how you guys usually do on vehicles. Obviously, this is the first time getting a chance to see your team. So, that being said, let's take a quick look. I like the way that the dog found the odor in the back. And then as you come along here, that's all very nice. I like the decision to shoot in on the inside and get that covered and then come back and run down here. In a perfect world, we would have carried that all the way around, back on the van, shoot back in between again, and then finish that trailer out. If we had come from the other direction, it could also be nice. Either way. Now, as it plays forward, unfortunately, you're going to see that the front of that vehicle is basically skipped. And so this is an excellent opportunity to apply a circling technique with your leash. But of course, you're using a flexi, so maybe that changes things for you. I still feel like you probably could have locked it down and done it. Also, I think your dog is fairly respectful of your directions. So it's not unusual to see a dog blast off in outer space like that. They do it all the time. And so what I would have encouraged you to do is when you see your dog come off the end, I would have applied a circling technique and have your dog come right back in, hit that wheel well, glue up to the vehicle again, and come down. So there's some really important things that I want to point out about that. The circling is so that we don't get an abrupt stop, because the abrupt stop can be a correction. The other thing that I want to note, and I see this is consistent through both videos, is that you're not on a harness, you're on the collar. So certainly, and I don't know why that is. I will say it's not my preference, but I believe that you probably have a reason for it. But particularly if you are on a collar and the dog gets an abrupt stop, it can feel like a correction. So instead, we apply it as a circle and allow that pendulum, that sort of momentum, to carry you back in a circle. Here's the other really important thing, is people, when they do apply the circle early on, have a tendency to bring it back and just go right down the front, which is fine, and it's certainly better than some alternatives. But what I would encourage you to do is when you circle it back around is actually tee into the side of the vehicle, right? So we've got the vehicle running down like this. And so I'm saying get ahead of that corner, because if we apply the circling technique and we come in kind of like this, the corner is still largely unchecked. So by circling back, that little subtle movement, it tees the dog in, stops the forward motion, and allows you to get a full efficient coverage there. If the dog has a tendency to go off the other end, certainly simple, circle it back, hit it here, and then go around. It doesn't cost any extra time, and it makes for a much more efficient move. Okay, hopefully you got the gist of that. Off we go. And I totally get it. The likelihood of multiple odors being on a single vehicle is pretty low, but there we have it. There we have it. And again, so see, this is kind of why I like to look at the video sort of live as you would, because honestly, I've looked at the other videos since this one and I completely forgot that there was a hide there. Very nice. So as I was giving you that recommendation about the circling, I had actually forgotten that there was another hide on here. So I'm glad that that worked out. And it all looks good. Hopefully you can see, and I don't want to beat it up, but hopefully you can see how if you had, gotten on that pretty quick and hit this, you probably would have sussed this odor out a little faster, as opposed to that, having to, you came in more like this and then bracketed and then came back. And I think you probably could have saved a little bit of time. Again, not a huge deal, just one of those finer points. So good to go. Off we go. So this is what I was talking about. Now you have to go back and get the other vehicle. Again, it's just a preference thing in regards to how I would have handled it. But let's see how efficiently you do this. So I feel like the back is thoroughly searched, the side, all of that looks pretty good. So I agree. I'm confident that that is fully searched. And even right there, we know that the dog didn't even check the back. I can't tell the other side, but we know the dog didn't check the back of that car. And I think that you told me in the email, ultimately you did miss a vehicle, or I'm sorry, an odor on this vehicle. So good that you decided to get back, but right there, that dog is not checking that portion of the vehicle. This goes unchecked. And then, right, and then of course, so does the other. So we know that. None of this got checked, and I believe the notes said that we had something in this area. So kind of the same thing, again, not to beat it up, but to just try to include value into this review. If you had approached this silver car and you had gone ahead and thoroughly investigated this all the way through before you left it behind, I think you would have picked up that odor, and I think it doesn't matter a whole lot as to which direction you had searched it. But of course, if you had known or had it in your mind that the vehicle has 4 sides and that we've got to get all 4 sides checked. So I think you already kind of understood what was the deal with that. So again, it's difficult to tell with only the one camera, but I think there's something over here on the left-hand side. We get another alert call, and that goes very well. And in your notes, you talked about missing a table, and I suspect that it's going to be this little table that we have right here. It's the only small table that I see. Maybe I'm not picking up on something. So let's see how that goes. No changes, no changes, no changes. It almost feels to me like you wanted to hold up, like there was something in you that said that we better check this out a little bit better. And I gotta say, maybe I kind of agree with you because we rounded this corner a little bit, and it's very common to do so, right? So we have a corner, and your dog sort of did something like this. Also, you know, at the level that you're searching, anytime we have something that's elevated, it can be very beneficial to make sure that we check up. So, in my own understanding of how odor works and my own search experiences, this table here seems like a high value target to me. But then again, so does this door, and so does this door. These all seem like things that I want to make sure that my dog gets a nose on. And I get it. You know what? Time's limited. There's only so much time to do so much. And that's why we have to make as much of an efficient search as we can to get the most of our time. But no changes in behavior there. We didn't get checked up, and I think that that may have something to do with it. We also talked about missing one on benches across from trash cans, and I think that's what we have here. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and if you have additional information, I'd love to hear it. But having skipped through this video sort of quickly before, I suspect that you might tell me that the target odor is down in this area. I see a little bit of a response from the dog on the other side, but almost, well, I think I get the most response from in this area. The dog's really checking the can, and maybe you're concerned that that's just distracting odor. Before we leave this bench area, I want to talk to you about some bracketing ideas and techniques. So I'm going to leave that go for now as we watch it play out. I can't tell if that one corner is out of play or not. It feels like, I think, yeah, there's a cone over there. I can tell that's out. So there's a little bit of a check up underneath of the bench there, but that's it. Definitely much more interest down that end. And then there we go. So then the dog pulls us over to those trash cans. Nothing on the backside. It's not until you get around to the front that you feel confident calling that, which I would agree. So let me just pause it right there. It gives me a good opportunity to sort of illustrate my thoughts about this. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your odor's down in here somewhere. I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe here. Okay, so right, what happens is you could certainly have a converging slash pooling sort of a behavior here. We know that we've got an odor down in here. And just for hypothetical purposes, let's say that we have an odor over here. It is definitely possible that the two odors are converging between here and here. It's also very possible, and I would argue at this point likely, that this is the stronger of the two odors. And I don't know about the set, but it is possible that they are the same odor. For example, you could have birch and birch, or clove and clove. It can be a little bit easier for the dog to suss out the scent picture if they're different. So for example, if you've got anise over here and you've got birch over here, then it's easier for the dog to determine the scent picture and go, okay, this is one and this is the other. But again, I'm working off of hypotheticals as to where the odor is. That's kind of my suspicion right now, and maybe you can give me additional input about that if you have it. The other thing that I want to talk about is the behavior that your dog displayed working that bracket. And so I'm going to let that play a little bit more. And I feel like you saw nice checkup, very nice. I feel like you saw the interest, and that's why I want to get into it. You're seeing the interest, but you're not seeing that sort of final sale, and you don't feel like you have enough to offer a conviction. And see right there. So the dog goes right back to, it's trying to work this out and then ends up getting caught in that convergence and goes right back over to where it knew the odor was. And then you call finish. All right. So let me go back a little bit. The judge sounds super happy. He's like, thank you. All right. So let's talk about the bracketing behavior. I'm going to go all the way back to the first time we sort of encounter that area. We'll look at it really quick and then move on. So the first time I personally see any real change in behavior is right around there. Yep, right around the corners, working out the trash can area. And then we move along, the dog checks back right there, and then that's it. So what I want to show you is an illustration of bracketing. So the first real interest was in here, but then the dog checks left again and really kind of comes back as far as this. So what I'm going to do is offer you sort of a visual tool that you consider when you see this behavior. Go ahead and visually indicate, okay, this is the far edge of my bracket. This is where I saw behavior change, and when my dog checked this way, it's at that point my dog said no, that's the end of the bracket, okay? So if we look at it in regards to an odor cone, right? The dog is searching along, and my dog hits odor here and then runs out of odor and decides to come back. My dog's in odor, runs out of odor, and comes back. Runs out of odor and comes back. So that is how bracketing works. That's how the scent cone works. And you can see it very clearly on dogs that track. It's a little bit different to see here. And another way to look at it is to draw the bookend. I saw that my dog encountered odor in this area, and when it went left, that's where it said, no, I'm out of the bracket. The other end is somewhere around here. The dog searched this way and said, no, I'm back out of it. Okay, so the first step is that you have to recognize those brackets. You have to recognize that the dog has had a change in behavior and is bracketing. The simple word is hunting, and that those areas, those sort of bookends are where it sort of stops and starts. And if you can offer yourself that sort of a visualization, then the likelihood is that your target odor is in this area. Okay. So what do we do about that? If you have the ability to present and detail and sort of that kind of a thing for your dog, the very next thing is to help your dog narrow that bracket down. And so I might come in here and go, okay, dog, let's narrow this down. How about you check right here for me? And then the dog either, and then get out of the way. So take your hand, present, and then step back, get back out of here, and let the dog make a decision about it. And either it's hot or it's not. Either the dog is going to go, you know what, boss? You're absolutely right. Thanks for helping me out with that. Or it's going to say, nope, that's not it. And then in which case you narrow the bracket on the other side and you go, well, how about here? And by doing that, you have eliminated this and you have eliminated this. Now we know that the odor is not there, but it's more centered in this area. And so it is through that process, and you can draw your bracket ends as big as you want. You could say that you saw odor there, or saw a change here, and you saw a change here. So okay, is it here? No. Is it here? No. Is it here? No. Is it here? No. It's in here. So I'm just using that as a way to sort of display for you some of the bracketing behavior that's going on, and a way in which you can help your dog work that out. Of course, that goes into the topic of your willingness to get involved in the search and all that kind of stuff. Your dog shows a little bit of interest on the other upright of the bench, back to your left a little bit, and you could have simply done the same thing there. If you have really nice odor obedience, you assume that the dog is not going to walk it, and the dog does walk it. But if you're seeing all this interest, and I believe that you are, because even after the cans, you come back and say, hey, let's give this another run, you believe there's something here. And so I would right now be encouraging you to go, all right, where were those bracket ends? Where did my dog show me the most interest? I saw interest far to the right. I saw interest to the left. Is it the trash cans? Hey dog, check here for me nice and hard. You step and get back out of the way, let the dog make a decision. If the dog can't commit to it, say, how about here? And then step out of the way and let the dog make a decision. Now, if at that point the dog still can't make a decision, then you have to assume that it's not odor. And if you find out that it is, then you have to go back and talk about your odor threshold, your odor obedience, and all these kinds of things. So that's what I think about that. Of it being the worst of the two searches, I have to tell you it wasn't a bad search at all. I feel like it was a very large area, and you did a really nice job getting some good coverage. So don't beat yourself up about that at all. I do think that there was time to be saved, and I think that there were times where the dog wasn't necessarily searching as well as we might like. Um, in regards to time being saved, the pattern itself wasn't necessarily wrong. It's just, I feel like you could have saved some time and been a little bit more efficient on the vehicles. And being more efficient on the vehicles could have saved you time and also would have scored you that other odor on the silver car. Um, Right. So there you go. That's what I saw. Looks good. I like this team a lot. And, I appreciate you trusting me to take a look at it and offer my feedback. So off I go. I'm going to take a look at that second video. I'm looking forward to it, and I will see you again soon.